Hey, it's the first Monday of the month, and it's also auction week.
Oh my God, that's
Yes.
right.
Yes. And,
Why haven't we had the celebration, or is that coming?
Well, the sheriff is here because the savings are so low.
It's
criminal.
There's an investigation underway.
Well, the last time you had
Brad Kunkel was here.
Last time you had an auction, I actually tried calling in. I forget what I was calling in for, and I forget which line I called. But while I was there waiting, I could hear you guys talking, and whatever I was wanting, somebody else snatched it up right before me, so I hung up.
That happens occasionally.
Yep, I just hung up.
Yeah,
But, we always have leftovers. You're always welcome to come and browse.
I don't want to come down and pick the meat off the bones.
No, that's...
No.
Our sponsors are very generous.
They are very generous. And so...
Okay, well, we'll see what the stock market does today and see if there's anything left.
Well, let's not tie the stock market in with the auction.
I'd hate to think that somebody doesn't spend $8 for a certificate because their 401k is down. But
you never know.
This whole thing is a zoo.
This is to save money.
We had thousands of people in downtown Iowa City this weekend.
I saw that. Yeah. There's a lot of people that turned out. Well, across the country.
Yeah.
That was impressive. And Jan wanted to go, but she didn't think she could, put up with it, and we wouldn't find a parking space. And well, I said, well, let's just go downtown and see.
And then you got to pay the parking meter, which I always whine about that anyway.
Not us. we found a handicapped spot right off, like within 5 seconds of going downtown, a handicap parking space with no meter. And we walked, a block and sat by St. Birch and, where the people were yelling and stuff. It was pretty cool.
No, it was a hell of a lot of people. From what I heard, a couple thousand, I think, is what the rumor. So it's pretty cool.
It is. So,
and it was peaceful. I don't think anybody vandalized anything or swung at anybody.
No.
Didn't affect our operation at all.
Well, that's good to hear.
No.
Yeah.
It was well done, really. So I want to talk about hands-free cell phone bill. That's a big deal.
Congratulations, by the way. I know that's been a big thing for you.
That's been a big deal for law enforcement for a long time, and I'm glad to see that finally made it across the finish line. So I haven't read the code thoroughly, but there are some exemptions in there for public safety. For one of the specific exemptions is anybody operating an implement of husbandry. So farmers, people in the course of operating farm equipment are exempt. There's a specific exemption for, like, if you call 911, while you're driving and you're staying on the phone with the dispatcher, that's an exemption. But beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. That you can still operate navigation, but the code is very clear. The phone has to be in hands-free. Cannot be in your hands. So that's a good thing. We see far too many crashes and fatalities on the roadways because of distracted driving. And we all know every time we go to a stoplight, we look around, and if it's not the person on the left, it's the person on the right, or maybe both, that have their phone in their hand. And that will no longer be, that is completely illegal.
So even at stoplights, when the car
yes, it said, the code now says you would have to be stopped and off of, like, the travel portion.
Like in a parking lot or something.
Or on the shoulder, right. So, you can't, none of this,
none of this checking your text.
No Snapchatting or texting at a stoplight nonsense. So, put the phone down.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
No, that is so dangerous.
It is. It is. And then we can all, think about the times we're at a stoplight and the light turns green.
And you're still waiting.
And you're waiting because the car in front of you is not paying attention. No, it's a good thing. I'm glad to see that finally made.
Now, it's okay if you're driving and talking as long as you're
hands-free.
Yeah.
Yep, has to be hands-free. Correct. Yeah. And I don't know what the fine is.
My wife
it says it's a scheduled violation, but I haven't looked that up.
My wife won't even let me do the hands-free thing on the don't talk on the phone while you're driving. I'm not a great driver.
Yeah. No, this is a good thing. This is a good thing for law enforcement, for public safety.
Yeah,
It really is.
Got a buddy who calls me occasionally, and oh, you're in the car. I'll call you later. I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm hands free. I can talk and drive at the same time.
I can too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of comes, something you have to learn how to do when you're in law enforcement. I mean,
Well, yeah, and if you have a wife or you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you're talking with each other while you're driving.
Correct.
Usually it's not you're just sitting there in silence unless things are going bad.
and I'm on the road quite a bit just in the course of my, I travel for conferences or to, meetings in Des Moines, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm on the phone pretty regularly, and hands-free is great because I can get a lot done. I can get it all done while I'm driving behind the wheel. So, no, it works good. Very happy for it.
Why would have anybody? There were some that fought it. Why would you fight that? I mean, seriously, I don't understand that.
I honestly, I don't know. It's pretty common sense
Freedom
legislation.
You know,
Yeah, you always.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, you have people that feel fundamentally the same about motorcycle helmets or seatbelts. That's a choice. It's a freedom. I should be able to make my own decision, and that's you just always have people who feel very strongly about liberties and their choices when it comes to safety behind the wheel.
Yeah,
It's just the way it is.
The motorcycle helmets just. If you hit someone without a motorcycle, I've always, you hit someone without a motorcycle helmet, I don't think you should. I mean, you should be penalized probably if you're not paying attention or whatever, but it shouldn't go the full route.
And you may
because they chose not to protect themselves.
And you may be the best motorcyclist on the road, but
yeah.
You could get hit by somebody who's not paying attention to you.
And that's really where I come at it from is you could be doing everything right as an operator, and that's a lot of times what we see. And especially ask people who are avid motorcycle riders, they all have stories about close calls. You know, somebody didn't see them, somebody going through an intersection, somebody merging over. That's really the bigger risk. It's not so much your own operation, it's everybody else, or hitting a deer. We see those from time to time too. So you just can't count on everybody else to be paying attention to making good decisions. So I support helmet laws. I wish Iowa had one, but it's another torch for them to carry another day, I guess.
Yeah, we're way in the minority when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the minority when it comes to a lot of stuff.
That's true.
So it's becoming spring. Well, it is spring.
Mm-hmm. It's pancake breakfast season.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
also kicked off over the weekend.
Were you in Cornville yesterday?
Heck yeah. You bet I was. Yep, that's always kind of the harbinger of the season for me is the Corville one. And it's tough because you've got, I think West High had one over the weekend.
They did. They had their Booster Club breakfast.
Morse had one. So there's always, it's a busy season. You got to figure out where you're going to go eat every weekend.
They put Aunt Jemima back on the bottle.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Are
But
you serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
she's hot.
Oh, boy. And I thought I was desperate.
No, it was good. Yeah, that was Sunday, and then, Tiffin, I think, is first part of May. Mm-hmm. Solon, end of May. I don't know. I always kind of know. I just wait till I see it starting to pop up on Facebook so I can.
There's one almost every weekend.
Yeah,
and that's.
And they all do. There's always something a little different at each one, which is kind of cool. Hills typically has, I think, biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
Tiffin, I believe, has cinnamon rolls. So yeah, everybody kind of has their own flair to it too.
What picks up in the spring for you guys?
People. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just people are.
More people are outside.
They are. They're outside. Not this weekend we just got through, but the weekend before, I know the deputies were all weekend long. Were pretty swamped. Just drunk drivers and people out and about. We just see more things. More when people are around people. stuff happens. You just see more.
Does drunk driving go up in the spring?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing more. And frankly, I think, as speaking from experience, law enforcement, you just, everybody. I mean, they work hard throughout the winter, but at the same time, you don't make a lot of traffic stops at 2 a.m. in February when it's 9 below. But so you see a lot more enforcement when the weather's. But as people are out doing more things, there's more events. You also have more people just driving intoxicated, which is, with the availability of ride sharing, with Uber, everything else, the fact that we still have so much is pretty disappointing. But you also have people who are eager to enforce it too. I mean, drunk driving enforcement saves lives. It really does. The less you have on the road, you're going to reduce traffic fatalities from drunk drivers, whether they kill themselves or somebody else.
Any time you go into like gas stations are now convenience stores.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing you see is alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a problem? I mean, is that contributing to the problem? Is it so readily accessible where you take your car?
I don't think that's it. I think it's just our culture and society. I mean, alcohol is it's a staple, if you will, of society. I mean, you have wine tasting events, and you have drink specials and all those things. I mean, it's the difference is the choices people make when they do choose to drink. You drink to excess. You're making that decision to drink too much and then get behind the wheel. And from a business standpoint, gas stations, they don't make money on gas. That's just that's what gets the car in the parking lot. They make the money and everything else.
They used to make money on service, and now they found out they can make a lot more money selling sodas.
Stuff. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so no, I don't know that it's availability. It's choice, and sometimes people have to make that choice, once or twice before they figure out, maybe I need to stop driving after I've been drinking. You'd be amazed how often we run across people for like an OWI that maybe it's their second, they just got their first one disposed of, or they already have a first OWI pending, and then they go out and get picked up again.
We get on our police reports, I mean, third and subsequent is a phrase used a lot.
Correct, because Iowa doesn't distinguish 5th, 6th, 10th, 20th. It's just anything after that third is called third or subsequent, and it's a Class D felony. Whether it's your third or your 8th or whatever it may be, it's a D felony.
First one's a serious, second one's aggravated
Correct.
misdemeanor, and then the third is a felony.
But so many times they're let off.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, they get convicted. Occasionally they go to prison, but then in the prison system, prison has a finite number of beds, and they have to kind of look at their bed spacing as a kind of a one in, one out. So they might only keep that OWI offender for maybe 90 days before they're turned back out to supervision on parole.
Right, and their insurance companies don't give them any break. They're
not insurable.
They pay through the nose, and they've got to either get a breathalyzer installed in their vehicle, or their rates go way up, or they're, like you said, they're uninsurable.
Those are not easy to trigger, because we had a news director years and years ago, and she had a breathalyzer, and
you really got to blow in those things.
Yeah, I couldn't start her car. I really can. And I don't drink. I couldn't start her car. And funny thing, I hired her on a Friday, and she worked at NBC, and we're still friends. She was great. And then Saturday, Anthony was reading the police reports, and someone was arrested for resisting arrest and all this crap and OWI. And I said, God, that's name sounds familiar. And Anthony goes, yeah, you just hired her yesterday.
No.
But she has since straightened up. And
yeah, sometimes Sometimes you get those moments where you go, time to make a change in life, and other times you don't.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people too that they'll get picked up for OWI and it's one and done. It's a lesson learned because it's an expensive road to go down. I mean, there's court fines, there's attorney fees. I mean, it costs you a lot of money. And
I knew somebody that got picked up, and then they were supposed to go to some kind of meeting for their company in Canada, and they wouldn't let them in.
Sure.
Because they had an OWI.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, that's another reason why we do it, though, is, a lot of our job is education and deterrence. And sometimes that deterrence mean accountability for the offense, and it deters you from doing it again. And that's the whole point of enforcement. Unfortunately, we have, I think all the agencies do a good job of enforcement, and you've got a lot of people that are good at it. They're good at detection, they're good at traffic enforcement, and then it's another skill set, and everybody's trained to do it, to do field sobriety testing, to know how to articulate what it is you're seeing and put that down into your report so you have a rock-solid case when you go to, wind up in a suppression hearing or, in trial someday to prove all the elements of the offense. It's standardized and it's routine, but the whole reason it is you have to follow those rules very carefully to have a successful case. And we got a lot of people who are really good at it.
And we get, we've talked about it before, but we always get, when you fill out a police report, that's a sworn statement going to the court. You can't make up stuff. You can't lie.
Right.
You can't, that's your, or else that's your head.
Yeah, it's your career. Yeah. Correct.
People don't seem to understand that. And we hear a lot, well, you're just using the police report and they lied.
Yeah.
When I took a hatchet.
The cops just don't take a bunch of things and, say Yahtzee and see what rolls out on the probable cause statement. I mean, they're articulating the facts that they saw that they can testify to give them the probable cause to file that charge.
And I would imagine one of the worst parts of your job is filling out paperwork all the time.
There's a lot, especially on an OWI.
Yeah.
There's a significant amount of. I mean,
it takes you off the road, and
Yep. So,
like you said, it's a sworn statement, so you got to make sure all your facts are right.
And I'd say start to finish, you're looking at 90 minutes to 2 hours. You've probably got somebody off the road from the time you make the stop, go through field sobriety, place them under arrest, transport them wherever you're going to do your chemical test, invoke implied consent. And then people during that, they have a right to a phone call, so they may want to call an attorney or a family member or both. Or, occasionally somebody like, nah, I don't want to call anybody. You have to get your chemical test. Then you've got to take them over to the jail. You got to write your charges if there's a busy night, you've got to wait to your turn to get booked in. So it takes people off the road, and a lot of it can depend on who's doing it. If you're downtown Iowa City, you're 6 blocks from the jail, right? If it's one of my deputies and they're coming from Lone Tree or Swisher, now you got to throw in 20 minutes of travel time, and then they may have to go to the bathroom and all those kind of things. So it takes people off the road for quite a while.
And do you find that you're getting more stops because of the technology and people being able to call in and say, hey, there's somebody driving like crazy on the road?
911 calls contribute to some of it, especially, weekends up on, especially 380.
I've made maybe half a dozen.
Really?
When I've been, because there've been people swerving.
Yep. We regularly get calls about, vehicles all over the road, and sometimes maybe they're fatigued, sometimes they're texting, maybe they have a medical condition, or they're intoxicated.
I've been accused of trying to drive up the police reports.
Maybe show them your tax return. You're not working on commission here as much as you'd probably like to. No, a lot of it is just plain old traffic enforcement, though. There's some that fall into your lap too. You'd be driving down the road and somebody just put their car in the ditch. You go over and you see a lot of those, or the banging into a park car in a parking lot kind of thing.
Sometimes they help you because they don't have license plates or the lights aren't working on the car or they don't have them on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a number of things.
Yeah.
They're driving in your lane of traffic, driving on a flat tire. It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I said, sometimes they make it easy.
Yeah. They ask for it.
They make
I
it
just
easy.
love the people that are driving without their lights on, or they don't have
Yeah.
their
Right, and
license plate,
there's
and
like
they got
50
meth in
pounds
the-
of drugs in the car.
yeah, yeah.
You'd think you'd have that stuff checked out before you go,
But the
you've
fact of the
already
matter
made a
is,
bad decision once.
we also see people that, they come to school to pick up their kids highly intoxicated. They show up to check in with their probation officer intoxicated. And you also run into a lot of people with serious substance abuse issues. And so sometimes the only way to get an intervention into that is going through the legal system, doing like court order treatment too. So it's an opportunity for a lot of people too to get a handle on substance abuse. So I mean, we see bad decisions, we see addiction, we see combination of the two.
It's not an easy job.
No,
Is that what you're saying? You think this is easy? You think me sitting across from him every morning is easy?
I'm guessing there's a reason that glass is there.
Triple glass, bulletproof.
But beyond that, the weather's nice. You're starting to see more, tractors are out in the fields again.
Yes.
So start slowing down, watching for tractors and hydrous tanks. The co-ops and the Stutzmans of the community are going to be ramping things up too. So just pay attention to everybody out there on the road with driving big trucks and farm equipment, ATVs, all those things. Motorcycles, watch out.
How's the discussions going with the combined jail?
So we have our next meeting. Well, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee meets, I think it's this Thursday. 2 weeks ago, a group of us went on a kind of a whirlwind tour, if you will, to a couple jails that are brand new. And the couple main goals of the tours, one, just to see what a new modern facility looks like compared to this. What a facility looks like that is compliant with jail standards and really able to meet the needs of people who are incarcerated. The other piece of it that was really important was to look at the process they went through to get there. So the first jail we went to was in Dallas County. That jail is, I think, 4 years old. It's 131 beds, very, very similar to the kind of the function and design that our space study came up with, where you have a central control unit in the middle of the building where your staff members are, and then your pods or your housing units are all around the periphery of it, transparent glass all the way through, and so your staff member sitting in the middle can see all the housing units. The inmates can't see out. You have much more separation, much more square footage, and then in those facilities they actually have like actual medical, like almost like a medical suite or a medical unit in there.
When you say the inmates can't see out of the jail, or
out of that glass looking out into the
So
like
it's
where
like
the controls are.
one-way glass?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's one-way glass. So the staff member can see in, but to the inmate standing in the pod, looking at that, this looks like a giant wall of reflective glass. So, and looking at what an efficient layout would be for like your booking area, how so you can have a body scanner to control contraband coming in, to actually have a medical exam room with basic equipment to take vitals, and have a healthcare provider come in and provide more like evaluation services in the jail. So Dallas kind of showed us what we would ultimately I'd like to see come here functionally and structurally. Then the really just getting into the weeds of what's working for them that we could apply here, and what were the takeaways they had to say, hey, if you're going to do this, add another smaller room for programming and services, or maybe you don't need such a large area for staff, you can make this a little smaller. So those were some of the bigger takeaways. And Dallas County did it through just a regular old bond referendum, getting the 60%. I think they got 62% when they finally got it over the finish line. So once we got done there, we traveled on up to Sioux City, spent the night, and then the next morning we went and toured the Woodbury County Law Center. So they went at it a little differently. They have the sheriff's office. All of their criminal courts are now in that same building. They have 4 courtrooms. The county attorney's office, and then a couple small spaces or kind of small overlaps that the city use. And then they formed a law enforcement authority as the kind of superintendent, if you will, of the building itself. The city police department is still separate. They're in their own separate building. But the way Woodbury County went about it is what we're looking to do here, where you have a combined government effort between the city and the county to join forces, if you will, and say we have shared interest in this building. And the difference is then the voting approval method or rate is 50%. They got that accomplished up there. So again, we sat down then with one of the supervisors involved and got some real good feedback on the lessons they learned about the process and how we're able to bring those lessons back here and think about, okay, as we navigate this, here's what they said do and don't do. How can we apply those things here? So it was a really beneficial trip.
That makes a lot of sense to have the courtrooms there.
It does.
It just seems
it really
it's safer than transporting them.
It does. It's a lot more efficient. They can transport the inmates. The jail and the courts are in the same structure. You're not moving any. You're not transporting them across town. I don't know that that's a whole other thing we have to talk about. But if we were to do something like that, the cost is going to go up significantly. I don't know if that's where we're ready to go. If that's something we want to look at as a 10 years down the road idea, I think that's maybe the best place to approach it. But if we were going to add courtrooms, this project is going to balloon significantly, and I think it might even be a poison pill for it at this point. So what we're looking to do here is, again, you have kind of the jail side of the house and some really good feedback and experience now looking at the Dallas County layout, and then how you can take two entities working together, the city and the county, to figure out what's our shared interest and how can we house the sheriff and the police department within the same building. So we just had our first meeting with Shive Hattery for this piece of it, so they can now take the space study we had done at the sheriff's office, the space study the city had done with OPN, and blend, and where are those overlaps for patrol, for investigations, for evidence management, those kind of things, and how can we operate in the same building as two separate entities but share spaces.
How big is Dallas County? 120,000, something like that. I mean, they're growing rapidly. But they got more beds. We're a bigger county.
Correct.
And they got more beds than we do.
Right. Exactly. And again, they have 131. The space study we had done here recommended 140. So, but I think a huge difference is also what we're doing here when it comes to the whole world of jail diversion. We're doing a lot more, and it's working, and it's slowing the rate of the growth in the jail, but we will still always need to continue to add beds over the long term, and you have to build it in a way so we're setting up the leaders of 25 years from now to be in a good position, and they're not having to navigate things like we are right now.
And the criminals of the future.
The bad decision makers. Yeah, that's the fact of the matter. I don't want to jinx it. We went without a homicide in this community for quite a while, and now we've had two in the last couple of months. Now there's two people in the jail for first-degree murder. So,
it's not. Again, we say it every time, but it's not the kids smoking weed or
Right.
drunk or urinating.
Right. They make those happen occasionally. There was one
Yeah.
over the weekend, you know, and I thought that was interesting actually, how much coverage it got of some kid who like stole a sign. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. That happens every year. I didn't understand why they got a lot of coverage. You know, we had a
Small town, lots of minutes.
Yeah.
but last weekend, you know, a guy was shot and killed
Yeah.
up a mile from us, and I'm disappointed in the coverage I've seen on it. And over the weekend, I talked to a lady Saturday, and I said to her, I brought that up. I'm like, did you know there was another homicide, you know, a week ago? She had no idea, because these things don't get covered like they should, and it's really frustrating.
No, and we did cover it, but when you're the only, I mean, seriously, when you're the only one doing crime anymore, you know, the Gazette's cut way back in crime. Press Citizen, it's non-existent, really. The TV stations, they had, you know, a story on it, but just a story on it. No, it just, I don't know, it's feel-good crap now.
I know, and I think that's what's disappointing. We have to talk about the reality of the things that happen. You know, the county attorney's office had a conviction for a sexual assault on Friday. Don't see a lot about that. But, you know, when people are upset about a plea arrangement or something, that seems to get more attention than the good work that they do, you know, the fighting that they do for victims. So I get frustrated with the things that should be covered.
Well, we get stuff out of you and right away. It's getting harder and harder for us to get stuff out of the other enforcement agencies, the local enforcement. It just is. Because there's people on the council, people on the supervisors board that thinks it makes the community look bad. It doesn't, you know, and I think they're misguided. You know, things happen, and it's our job to report them. You know, I mean, we report plenty of good. You know, but something like homicides or the abuses, spousal abuses, whatever. You know, it's our duty to report that stuff too.
No, and I'm glad you do. Again, I think these are the things that, you know, that happen to people we know. You may not know it at the time, but I think the public would also be amazed how often, you know, law enforcement was at their neighbors, or you know, had to cut through their backyard at 3 a.m. to go to a dangerous call on the other block, because we're out there doing, you know, we're doing the hard work that the public demands, you know, keeping the community safe.
And you have nothing to do with the plea agreements.
No, and those are complicated because those involve input from, you have defense attorneys, you have the county attorney, you have, you know, and at the end of the day, judges are, you know, they're agreeing to it too, or they may go against the agreement one way or the other. So they're very, very complicated.
You can see where the public, in some of them, and some notable ones in the last few months, you can see where the public would be upset. They don't, you know, they're not doing your job, and they only have this much information to go on.
Well, and that's the way it is with everything. I mean, you have limited amount of time to get limited amount of information into, you know, people have busy lives, and that's, I don't know how if you can do everything you can to change that, but maybe there's kind of peak adjustments you can make, because at the end of the day, you know, the general public, we move on. You know, we have busy lives, we have kids to raise and jobs to go to and hobbies to do, and the justice system is complicated. I mean, at the end of the day, it's very complicated, it's very nuanced, and is not linear. It's more like almost like a solar system, or, you know, the middle of it is the the defendant, and there's all these factors that swirl around, and then kind of looming over it is the courts, because they're the ones that make the decisions, and they're the final decision maker of a person's case as it navigates from arrest to disposition and beyond. It's very complicated.
Yeah, and when my wife did social work, it's very frustrating when, she took the kid away.
Right.
She didn't take any kid away. She went to the court. The judge takes the kid away. Social worker doesn't take the kid away. They just provide a report based on what they've seen, just like, law enforcement.
And there's an overwhelming job too. Social workers. I mean, God bless them for what they do, because there's not enough of them.
She did that for 30 years.
Boy.
And sometimes at gunpoint. So, I mean, yeah, that's a dangerous job.
It is a dangerous job.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she dealt with me afterward.
Comes home for some comfort and ends up with you.
Ends up with a radio station owner.
Who watches nothing but Law and Order.
You think you had a bad day.
Yeah, this guy talked over the song. Well, thank you for coming in.
Glad to do it. Thanks for having me.
See you next
Appreciate
month.
the opportunity.
I offered him a donut. He wouldn't take it. Dispelling the myth of law enforcement.
Yes. Time to strike down that rumor and
Yes.
replace it with something else, like pancake breakfast.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yep.
Sheriff. Mighty 1630, KCJJ.
Are you ready to live the life you've